So in the last video, we completed our controller setup and we did the dynamic controller loading. Now it's time to work on middlewares. Okay. So as you already know what are middlewares, right? So middlewares are just function that sit in between your request and the handler function. Okay. So now we want to introduce middleware into our framework. Okay. So this is what I'm thinking to implement. Okay. And as I have said before, this is highly inspired from Nest.js framework. Okay. So this is what I want to do. Okay. I want to write a decorator and I want to call it as use middleware. Okay. Use middleware. And here I want to pass a middleware class. Okay. So this logger is a middleware class. Now this is giving squiggly and we are going to implement both of this. First, let me start with how we can define a middleware class. Okay. So in our framework, we will define a very specific way of creating a middleware. Okay. So this is what I want to do. In the core, okay, I want to have a folder and I want to call it as interfaces. Here all the code interface will sit and one of them is the middleware interface. Okay. So here I will say interfaces. Okay. And here I will add a new file and I will say I middleware.ts. Okay. So this is the convention I'm following for middleware. So here what I will do, I will say export interface. Okay. I middleware. Okay. And it will have a very specific function. Okay. That is use. So this is the function that somebody has to implement when they want to create a middleware function, right? So it will take request. Okay. This will be of type request and it will come from express. Okay. Just be careful of the suggestions that you are getting in your VS Code or in any other editor. Make sure it is coming from express. Okay. And from no other place. Okay. Otherwise you will start getting strange errors. Okay. And response, and this will also come from express. See, I'm getting the fourth suggestion. Okay. Response and a next function. Okay. So this is very important when you are creating a middleware. Okay. And what this will return, this will return void. Okay. So because when our middleware execution is done, we will simply call the next function, right? So this doesn't need to return anything, right? So this is the base template of the middleware. Okay. Now we will close this core. Okay. And in common, I already have a folder called middlewares because I was playing around previously. For your case, you can create a middlewares folder inside common. Okay. And in this middleware folder, I will add a file. Okay. I will call it as logger dot middleware.ts. Okay. So again, we are following the same convention. Okay. So what this will do, this will do export class logger. Okay. Implements I middleware. And if you see, we are getting a squiggly here. So it says quick fix and it says implement interface I middleware. So your editor will automatically implement it. Okay. Now depending on your scenario, what you want to implement. Okay. For now, I'm just going to log the basic request. Okay. So let me just copy this. So console.log. Okay. And in a particular format, request.method and request.url. Okay. And what I have to do, I have to call the next method. Now coming back to controller, I will say quick fix and add import to this middleware. Okay. Now this use middleware is still throwing error, right? So now let us work on our middleware decorator. So we'll come to core, we'll come to decorators. We already have a request.decorators.ts. Now I'll say new file. Okay. And here I will say middleware.decorators.ts. Okay. Perfect. And here what I will say export. Okay. Function use middleware. And what this will take, this will take the middleware function. Okay. So I'll say middleware of type function. Now what this will do, this will return the decorator function, right? Function. Okay. We will say target of type any, okay, and property key of type string. Now if you remember this get decorator, right? So what we were doing in this get decorator, so if I show that one, what we were actually doing, we were creating a route instance, and there we were attaching the method, the route path, and the property key, right? Now in the same line, when somebody adds a middleware, okay, what I want to do, I want to add another property here, that is the middleware's array, right? So let us work on that. So first what I have to do, I have to update this route. So this will take a middleware array, okay, middlewares, and this is going to be a function array, right? Okay, so now as soon as I do this, it will give me squiggly. I can mark this as optional because I don't have to compulsorily pass the middleware, right? Say here I am not passing any middleware, right? So I'll keep this as optional. Okay. Now what will happen when we try to read the same property here? Okay. So here let me copy this one. Okay, and I'll paste it. Okay, and I will import routes. Then if I just do a simple console.log and I will say routes from middleware, right? As simple as that. And here I will say console.log. Okay, I will say routes. Okay, and I'll come to book controller and I will import this one. Okay, so now when I check my console, see everything is working. Okay, now what I want to do here, I want to use this middleware on top of this function as well, right? On the get all books. Okay, so if you see here, what will happen? First, this function will be executed. Okay, then this function will be executed. Now they are in the same route. Okay, so what will happen on these routes? So first this function will be added, then on the second log, of course this function will be there, and then this function value will also be added, right? So let me show you. So if you see here, routes from middleware. So first what value we get? We get one handler or one array item with this handler get all books. And second time when I run this, of course this was already added. On top of this was added, right? So because why we are doing the push, right? So if you see here, we are taking the current routes. Okay, that means it will pick this current route and then it will add or push another value, right? So that's what happens when the middleware is called second time, right? Now how we will know that for which route this middleware function is called? So all we have to do is filter based on this property key. See, we have the handler, right, which is get all books and get all books by id, and we have a property key here, right? So what we have to do, we have to filter. Okay, so I will say const current route equals to routes dot find. Okay, so r dot handler equals to property key. Okay, so instead of routes, okay, I will log the current route. Okay, so now if you see routes from middleware, now this is no longer an array but a single object, right? So now what I can do on this object? Okay, if you remember this routes, okay, it has another property called middlewares, right? And we have a middleware function. So all we have to do is to add that particular middleware to this current route. Okay, so let us do that. If okay, current route dot okay middleware, that means if it is already defined. Okay, so what we can do, current route dot middleware, okay, dot push. Okay, what we will push? Middleware function. Okay, and if this is not the case, that means we don't have the middleware, what we can do, current route, okay, dot middleware equal to okay array and it will have only one item, that is the middleware, right? So if it already has n number of middlewares, it will just push to that. If this is the first time that we are registering the middleware, okay, what we will do, just one array item and that it will have the middleware, right? So if we now see the log, if you see routes from middleware, it has path and method and handler and middleware, right? The class logger, right? Now if I show you just for example, if I add it twice, what will happen? See, the get book by id, which has one decorator middleware, it has only one item in this middleware, right? But the get book by id, see, it has two entries, right? Why? Because for the first entry this get executed, right? And the second entry this get executed, right? So I will remove one of this log and I will save. Okay, now if I print the route, okay, what value we will get? See, this is the routes. Okay, here what we will get, the first array. Now we are not doing the filtering, we are on the base array, right? The routes array. So here we have the middleware, and in the second function, the second time when the function gets executed, okay, that get executed because this function is added twice here, right? So for the first one, this is the log. For the second one, it includes this log plus this log, right? So that's why we have two array items. Okay, now what we are going to do with this information, we are going to use this in app.ts, right? So let me do one thing. I can remove this controller, okay, and I can now remove this middleware, okay. And what I have to do, I have to put it in metadata. So what I can do, I can do this. So if you see request decorator, what we were doing at the end, we were pushing it back to the metadata, right? So here also we updated the routes, okay, and here what we will do, we'll update it back to the metadata, okay. Then I will come to app.ts, okay, and if you see here, we have this route, okay. This route has method, path and handler. Now what else we have? We have route dot middlewares, right? We have the middlewares. So now we can use this one. Okay, so where we use it in between the path and the handler. So if you see the example here, okay, so in this scenario where you would have added, this is the path, this is the handler, right? And if you remember the other typical express app, so what we do, we call some logger function here, right? Like this. So this gets executed as a middleware, right? If you are not sure about this, I have already made course on express, maybe you can once check that out, right? So this is how we add lots of middlewares, right? So maybe error handler middleware, right? Like that we can add multiple middlewares here, right? So how can we get the middleware? So when I come inside the route, I can say const middlewares equals to route, okay, dot middlewares or an empty array, right? Now what is this actually? So these are the list of middleware classes, right? So this I cannot execute as a function, right? But how can I execute this as a function? So for that, what I will do, I'll say middleware executable function equals to middleware dot map, okay, map, okay, and this will take a function, okay, and here I will say middleware, and what will be the type of this one? This will be type of new, okay, I middleware. Now what does this mean? This means this map function will take a class which has a implementation of I middleware interface, right? Now what I can do, this is just the class name, right? So if you remember here, the controller, it was just the name. to get the instance, what we have to do? We have to use it from the container, right? Now, if I have to say const middleware instance equals to container dot get, okay, this middleware, right? And if we have to use this, okay, what we have to do? We have to come to our middleware, okay, and we have to decorate it with service decorator, right? This should come from type dependency, type di, right? Then only this container dot get will get the instance from the di container, right? And here what we will return? Middleware instance dot use, right? See, we got the use. Why we got the use? Because we defined this middleware as a class that inherits from I middleware, right? So now this middleware is an executable function, okay, or list of executable functions. So I should mark it as plural, okay. And here what I should do? I should spread it dot dot dot, okay, and middleware executable functions and a comma, right? So now what we have done, this functions whatever was there in the use, okay, so if you see this one, this use, okay, now it has come here as middleware executable function, and that is spread here, right? So now the moment of truth. So this is loading, the controller has been loaded, right? Now I will open Postman and I will send a request. We got something back. Now let us check our console. See here, this is the log from, this is coming from the log middleware, right? So I'll show you the log middleware again. What this is doing, request dot method. So that is the request dot method get and the URL, right? So if I run get all books, okay, so if I open this one, this is still get and slash books, right? Now what I can do, I will come here and I will remove this one, okay, from where? From get all books, okay. So now if I run get all books, okay, will I get log? No. Just to prove, okay, I'll show you. I'll run this one. See, I'm getting slash books slash one, right? Again, if I run, okay, I get this again, right? Now if I come here and if I run, okay, see, I'm not getting anything, right? So now our middleware setup is complete, okay, but now there is a very big catch, okay. So if you see, this middleware get executed from bottom to top, okay. So this get function will be executed first, okay, and then this middleware will be executed. So in this middleware, if you see, we are assuming that there is a routes. So what if, okay, in this book controller I do it like this? See, this is also a valid way, right? I cannot force the developer or user of this repository to use this use middleware on top of get, right? So my framework should be robust enough to handle this, right? So now if I save this one, see, everything is crashing, all red, right? Okay, so we will fix this one. Okay, so how to fix? So first we will come here, okay, and we have to see if there is a routes already. What we will do, we'll simply add the middleware, okay, and if that is not the case, we will create the route instance, keep everything empty. What are the everything? So everything means the method we don't know, the path we don't know. So we know the handler and we know the middleware. Handler is nothing but the property key, right? So if I don't have a route, okay, in this middleware, let me add that route, okay, and in request.decorator, I can check if the route exists, okay. I'll just set the path and the method. If it doesn't, I will set up everything along with the empty route, okay. If that is confusing, just watch, okay, this will become very clear, okay. So now if you see, if, okay, I'll say routes, okay, if we already have route, okay, I will do all of this and it makes sense. If it doesn't have route, I will say, okay, routes dot push, okay, what we will push? The method. Do we know the method here? No, right? We don't have any way to know the method, so we'll keep it empty. Okay. Do we know the path? No, right? We don't know also the path. Okay. Do we know the handler? Yes, we know the handler. This is nothing but the property key. Okay. And the middleware. This will be the middleware value that we are getting from here, right? So if you already have the route, just add it. If we don't have the route, okay, when we will not have the route? When this use middleware is invoked first, we will not have the routes, because who is adding the routes? The request decorator is adding the routes here, right? So we can add it here also, the same logic, this one, right? We will add it, okay? And here, what I have to use, I should use the current route instead of the routes, okay? So just a small correction, okay? If we find the route, current route, then only we will do this, okay? Otherwise, we'll push a new route, okay? Now, here what I will do, I'll again find the current route, okay? So how can I find the current route? Like this, okay? Now, what I can do, if, okay, current route, that means if I have some value, okay, what value I will have? I'll have handler and middleware, right? Now my responsibility is to add these two, method and path, right? So I'll say current route dot method equals to get, and I will say current route dot path equals to route path, okay, and I will say else, okay, and I will cut, okay, and paste it inside, okay. And here what I can do, I can say middlewares as an empty array. So now these two are complementing each other. So if we already have a route, okay, how we will already have a route? Because this guy might have added, right? So it will have the method and the path, okay. So what else we will add? We will add the middleware only, okay. If we don't have, we will push it, okay. When we push it, okay, this guy will find it, and what this will do, this will add the missing property, okay, that is the method and the path. Why? Because we kept these two empty here, right? Great. So now with these two completed, let us check how our function behaves. So if you see, our server is now running properly, okay. So now if I send a request, okay, see, I'm getting the log, okay. So now what we have essentially done, now we have made this independent of the place where we use it, right? And we have added just small tricks. Now let us add one more functionality, middleware at the level of the controller, okay. So something like this, so I will add it here, okay, and I will remove it from all other place. Now what does this mean? It, this use middleware, it should be invoked for all the methods, okay, that are available inside this particular class, okay. So for that, how we will approach? So here what we will do, we will come to this use middleware, okay. Now earlier, okay, earlier it was used on a property, on a method, right? Now it is used on class. So how can we distinguish that? If it is used on class, we'll have the target, but we'll not have the property. If it was used on a method, we'll have the property, right? This is how we can distinguish if it is used on a class or on a method. That is this decorator, right? So here what I can say, okay, if property key, okay, that means this is used, the middleware function is used on a class method, right? And here what I can do, I will cut all of this and paste it here, okay. Else, okay, so that means when this property key is not defined, that means this decorator is used on a class, right? So I will say used on a class and not on a property or method, right? Great. So this is very simple. What we will do here, okay, here what we can do, we can define a metadata. So I can say reflect, okay, dot define metadata, and I can say controller middleware, okay, and I can say the middleware value on the target. Now is this going to be enough? Right now there is a possibility that more than one middleware is used here, right? So if we do this, it will override with the latest middleware, right? To prevent that, what we have to do, we have to read the existing middleware. Okay, so I'll say const controller middlewares equals to reflect, okay, dot get metadata, and I'll copy this keyword, okay, and here I have to pass the target, right, or an empty array, right? If it doesn't have anything, and then what I will do, I'll put this into an array, okay, and I will spread the controller middleware, okay, and on top of that I'll add the middleware. Okay, now we have set up the middleware in this reflection key, right? Now what we have to do, we have to go to our app, and before that let me copy this line. Okay, here inside this controller, okay, I will add this line here. We already have the base path, the routes, and the instance, and we are inside this controller loop, right? So here I will use this constructor, okay, to read the metadata. Okay, this is the controller middleware. Now what I should do, we already have these middlewares, that is the route middlewares. What I have to do is I have to merge this route middleware and this controller middleware, so that if anything is there in this route middleware, that will be executed, and if anything is there in this controller middleware, that should also get executed, right? So here I can say const, okay, all middlewares equals to, okay, dot dot dot, I'll say controller middlewares and this middlewares, okay, and maybe I should rename it to route middlewares, okay, route middlewares, and here this map should happen on all middlewares. Now let us come to our console and see if there are any error, and it clearly says, okay, identifier not found in container, okay, and if you see, this error is coming because this route middleware, it could be an empty array, right? So here I should have spread this one also, okay. So now if I change this one, see, we are getting the server back, okay, and now when I send the request, see what I'm getting, the log, right? And the same thing will happen here on the get all method, okay. And why this is happening, because here on the book controller I have used this logger middleware at the controller level. So that is the whole idea of how we can implement middleware. So this is it for this video. I really hope you like this video, you learned something new. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel, because this is the kind of content I bring on this channel on a regular basis. And I'll see you in the next video.